Hi everybody. We will be presenting on a study that Jialei and I did on her students in her technical communication course. And those students used the Figma software. The AI, it's AI powered, but also regular user experience design prototyping. Um, tool that they used. So you'll have to excuse me. I'm probably a little bit jet laggy, so I might not be completely coherent, but I'll try to do my best. So we conducted a study, and at first we were just kind of interesting to see how people integrated AI in their user experience design process. And initially we thought, well, AI is perhaps a little bit different from user experience design, and it's more trained on text, whereas, of course, user experience design is very much grounded in user-centered research. And so the surprising thing that we found, this was a semester-long study, is that we saw that students were engaged in designing with a form of knot working, as in knots, tying in knots. So they were tying in AI into their activities. And then we studied how they did so, not by looking at the day-to-day processes, but on how they reflected on that. And so students described their process with using the various AI capabilities in Figma AI and describing it as a subject or a person that they conversed with, and kind of keeping with Fatima's mention of conversation, right? But I also saw it as a design object that allowed them to share design ideas and to work through different design where AI helped them, but also just AI as a tool that they use, but or a text in a genre that they could learn design conventions from. And so they formed a community with AI. We thought that was very interesting. And then as a result, they developed their own type of local AI ethics where they negotiated their creativity with generative AI capabilities in Figma. So this quick overview. So we'll get started on kind of like our background and the theory of how we approach this study. And then Jialei will talk about the methods for studying this. And then what we will do is we kind of coded our data based on not working categories. Not working, by the way, is by a Finnish researcher of socio-technical processes. And so in not working, there's a characteristic phases of tying with the technology, then untying, and then retying in a new way. So we saw that happening with AI. So we studied that. Um, excuse me. And the other findings is we also looked at how AI played a role in their workflow. So particularly, we want to see how it was described as just a subject, like a person, if it was described as a tool, if it was described as a text or a genre, and so forth. So we'll end with the implications and our conclusion. So for this study, we were really interested, as mentioned before, how is AI transforming user experience design processes? And so we found like a state of user research report, and there's a lot of discussion on using large language models to do report writing. So our well-known ChatGPT, right? But then a lot of people in user experience design were also using different programs to schedule user interviews, to do transcription, which is fairly familiar to us. But then we also started finding out, also because of the Jialei teaching Figma, that there's large vision language models that are kind of impacting user experience design, meaning uh, people were able to have conversation with AI and then generate an image, or generating visual design components, buttons, icons, but also whole interface prototypes, if you will, in Figma. So that's what we studied. Like I said, the key concepts for this study was that we were using Knotworking just to frame and see how people created these kind of collaborative knots with a generative AI, and then how they conceptualize that. And we wanted to do that particularly because we were interested in seeing how AI functioned perhaps as a third agent between the designer and the design system of Figma. So acting in a new way rather than just, oh, here's an actor. So we want to study that. Okay, so there's been some publications in technical communication and user experience design. I'm very happy to see many people here at this conference. And so the interesting thing is that a lot of user experience designers, of course, are very worried, similar to what Fatima was saying. They're very worried about user experience design perhaps being hoovered up by AI and integration of AI and Figma. So Jialei and her colleagues, Matthew Vetter, Grant Young, and others, have also kind of articulated the need for students developing and paying attention to students developing their own local AI ethics. So learning to negotiate, okay, what works for them, where they're like, okay, saying, okay, we'll have AI help us, and here's where we need to introduce our creativity. And so, like I said, we are using Knotworking, and we're using these are as kind of pre-existing categories. The way we arrived by this is we first did an inductive stage, looking at our data and saying, okay, what are we observing? And then as we did that, and Jialei will talk more about that, we also did deductive, where we basically applied these categories and then coded for those to see what variation existed in that as a form of abductive reasoning. So now I turn it over to Jialei.
Great. So our case study aimed to understand how technical writing students integrated generative AI tools or Gen AI tools into their user experience design workflows. So initially, we employed thematic six-step framework, which involves becoming familiar with the data, generating initial codes, identifying themes, refining themes, naming the themes, and writing up the final analysis. So using the inductive coding, we map the entire Knotworking processes onto our data. To ensure the rigor of our analysis, we also apply deductive coding to explore the elements of Knotworking. So our participants, a group of 22 critical writing students working in small teams, they were instructed on how to use Figma, a popular UX design platform, AI plugins such as Jambot, Magician AI, Color AI, and Identic. So these generative AI tools allow students to automate their text generation, cluster brainstorming ideas, and quickly create detailed design elements through conversational prompts. Next slide, please. So our research focused on two main questions. First, how do students use GenAI to augment their collaborative activities through Knotworking? And what roles does generative AI play in untying and retying interactions? Secondly, we're also interested in learning about how do students engage in Knotworking processes within human-in-the-loop activities. So to address these questions, we collected qualitative data from team-written AI statements, as well as individual reflection essays. Our analytical approach was collaborative. So each of us coded the data independently, after which we met to reconcile the coding discrepancies and achieve a consensus. So ultimately, by tracing the students' dynamics with GenAI, we aim to illustrate how generative AI functions. Generative AI functions both as a boundary object and as an active participant in students' UX design activities. Our analysis reviewed three key stages, namely tying, untying, and retying, that categorize the students' interactions with GenAI tools in their UX design processes. Next slide, please. So in the tying stage, students initially integrated GenAI into their workflow with enthusiasm. They found tools like Figma's Figma board and the various AI plugins extremely valuable for vision and visualization. So on this slide, you can vividly see a screenshot of the Figma board with the AI facilitated ideation function, along with the various capabilities for textual and iconic generation. Next slide, please. For instance, students like Nicholas and La, of course, we're using the student pseudonyms in this study. So students like Nicholas and La, they appreciated how quickly these tools enabled collaborative brainstorming and efficient idea organization. Simon also highlighted how Figma's Gembot feature significantly sped up his group ideation and helped them move swiftly from very broad concepts to more concrete app designs. Next slide, please. However, as students moved into the untying stage, they began encountering significant challenges. Although initially helpful, GenAI tools presented notable limitations. Many students describe a steep learning curve and usability challenges. Kenya, next slide, please. So Kenya, for instance, noted difficulties mastering the functionalities of specific plugins, while Nisha mentioned how navigation issues initially slowed her down. Additionally, some students felt that the over-reliance on AI hindered their sense of creativity. Alexander, for instance, described feeling boxed in by AI-generated templates, which suggested that those templates limited his team's creative freedom. Next slide, please. So finally, in the retying stage, students re-engaged with AI tool recognizing and addressing their limitations. And Gustav can talk more about retying.
Yeah, so Jialei mentioned kind of students feeling boxed in. So we kind of saw that. So this is kind of the third stage of Knotworking, where people retie and they're kind of trying to negotiate their AI ethics and trying to figure out, okay, how can I do this? So as an example, we had one team, oddly enough, but also very interestingly, we saw a lot of retying statements in their team statements, where the students had kind of smoothed out how they went about working with AI. So we focused on team statements. And so one team found, for instance, that they had prompted for, we want a bicep holding lightning bolt. And then they found that generative AI gave them a very specific image. And then they're like, oh, no, let's take a step back. And we kind of we want to have the framework for it, and the design element, but we want to fill in the content ourselves. So they re-prompted and asked for a more minimalist style. Some other things that we saw that we thought was very interesting is next to these re-prompting strategies, is that some students negotiated their own local AI ethics, where they said, okay, we're actually not very comfortable using generative AI, but we're going to be using it towards the end when we've already completed our work and to have AI identic. as a design checker on our work. So they were kind of ensuring our creativity. So we thought that was very interesting negotiation of student creativity. So as Jialei mentioned, so AI was definitely in retying was used as a collaborative tool or to generate ideas and to kind of negotiate that agency. But then students also used the generative AI capabilities within Figma, so the Jambot, or maybe they were generating icons, or they were generating interface design prototypes as a form of a design material. And this is something we thought was very interesting, where design materials are um, areas that allow people to materialize their designerly intentions and then to discuss about that in kind of a collaborative process. So we thought that was very, very interesting. Students here in the retying phase really were having to struggle and redefine what it means to balance their human creativity, as we see, with AI efficiency of, oh, here, let me generate this for you, and then having to make that decision. Well, okay, we just want it as a design element, and we want to be able to collaborate and contribute our creativity. So uh, please don't add too much, fill in too much. We want to contribute to that. And so developing that local AI ethics. And so we also looked, like I said earlier, at how students described AI as a text, a tool, maybe a genre, an object, or a person. So we want to see how, instead of going and trading into these binary opposites, how students were using co-agency with generative AI in Figma using these different tools. So we saw definitely that had a big influence on team collaboration. And so here are some samples that may be of interest, where we coded for these, where we said, okay, well, how is AI working as a mediating object? And where we want to see, okay, how is AI described to facilitate bringing them into new ideas and to use AI as a design material. So we can kind of see here on the right-hand side a sample expression where they're saying, okay, we could actually absorb and synthesize um, ideas and our ideas and intents very well using I think it was like a Jambot AI to kind of brainstorm in a nonlinear fashion. So we thought that was very interesting. It's a good example of AI kind of representing this mediating object. Students, of course, also described AI as a tool, which you would expect, right? And so we had a team say, okay, we used FigJam for effective brainstorming. We used Figma, uh, various AI plugins ourselves to visualize and create design elements as well. And then, of course, students also described AI as a genre in their statements after having completed the project, where they mentioned its role in facilitating creating different genres, such as creating an image, an icon, or a layout. So you kind of see a sample statement on the right-hand side. And of course, they saw it as a text as well to learn ideas from. And so we saw students describe influences of Figma and FigJam and various plugins in helping them realize their design ideas and kind of getting influenced by AI. And then lastly, of course, this is very interesting as well, where students anthropomorphized AI as kind of a teammate, where they're saying, okay, yeah, this FigJam AI board gave us this idea, right, for leaderboard type system, which we thought was very interesting as well. So, implications for technical communication and UX. Whoops. I believe that is you, Jialei.
So our study explored how GenAI tools influence technical writing students' UX design workflows. So adopting the concept of not working, we observed that GenAI served as an ideal a prototyping assistant, and a design validator. Students embrace GenAI for rapid idea generation and automation of repetitive tasks. However, they also encounter limitations. So AI sometimes constrain their creative freedom by narrowing design choices to very predefined templates. Students responded to these constraints through reworking strategies such as adjusting prompts and manually refining AI's outputs to reassert their creative agency. Our findings also reveal AI's multifaceted roles in collaboration and design and exploration. Importantly, students often um, anthropomorphized AI and interacted with GenAI as a collaborative partner, which indicated a shift in understanding GenAI as a dynamic third agent. So this study also reveals important considerations for pedagogy. First, future research could further explore the shifting roles of AI beyond traditional human-in-the-loop frameworks. AI function dynamically throughout the design process, which requires adaptable teaching approaches that would prepare students to engage GenAI as a collaborative partner rather than merely a design assistant. Additionally, the stochastic nature of AI-assisted design, which is categorized by its randomness and conversational prompting, would require that students manage creative divergence. Educators should guide students in navigating these random processes and help them develop strategies to better leverage AI-generated variability effectively. Last but not least, our findings also highlight cultivating local AI ethics. So students frequently face situations that required critical reflection on their creative contributions related to AI-generated designs. Future research could further explore how students and educators build local AI frameworks and foster critical AI literacy, as well as creative thinking. So ultimately, recognizing AI's evolving roles as an active partner in design can transform educational practices and empower students to learn both thoughtfully and creatively. Next slide, please. So for more information about this study and related studies, you may check out our recently published article in Technical Communication Quarterly, namely Augmenting User Experience Design with Multimodal Generative AI, a study of technical communication students. All right. Thank you for listening. This is the end of our presentation.